Otis, settle down. Settle. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am well. Yeah, it's not so early for me in mountain time.
Yeah, it's some sort of early. Okay, and is it Graham or Graeme?
Yeah, you got it right the first time, which is not typical in North America, but
Okay, Graham. Okay.
More, yeah.
I'm just having a little bit of fun in that my Zoom is only allowing me to share with my private other Facebook page. So I'm just trying to wangle my settings at the moment. So if you just give me a minute.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm not in the screen.
Yeah, I don't think you are.
I just was when I watched.
Good morning, LaRae.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Welcome. It's so good to see you. It's nice to see you both.
Oh, this is so lovely. Okay, so as a person of without knowledge, can I just double check that it's LaRae Wiley?
Yeah.
And it's Salish or Salish?
Salish.
Salish School of Spokane.
Yes. Yes. I
Spokane?
have a question. Spokane. Yeah.
Spokane. Okay.
And I have a question for you about some language here.
Hmm.
What this it says the Dallas de Morts. How do you say that?
Well, I don't
yeah.
speak French, so
Oh, okay. So
Jade, do you?
Oh, I do, but I think it's Les Dalles des Morts.
Dalles de Morts.
Yeah, so the T is and the S
Silent.
the T silent in that situation.
Okay.
I definitely said Spokane at one point. So
It's all good. It's all good.
The first time I read about the Pend Oreille River, I called it the Pend Oriole.
Oh yeah, me too. And I live in the state and it's just like wow.
well, there's really some moments where you just language is an interesting barrier to all kinds of things. So yes, just doubling back to that email that I sent. Where do we have many screens over and Zoom likes to hide them? Yeah, so I'm just going to say good morning, hello, introduce myself, including a land acknowledgement of where I am, and then introduce you, LaRae. Okay, that's another thing, is you are from the blank Arrow Lakes band. Can you?
Yes, aตั๋yc.
Oh, it is. It's just the spelling of aตั๋yc.
Well, we say a little different, but it's fine. Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to delving more into the language as Bean, who are part of the Outdoor Learning Store, are starting to put on different language courses. So we're starting with Tanaha, but aตั๋yc would be fantastic. And I believe that Revelstoke is the land of the bull trout in the aตั๋yc language. And so it's a pretty special place.
It's wonderful.
Yes, and I'm just going to read this sort of quite long introduction, but I feel like it sort of does everything and sort of acknowledges everyone that's contributed. And then I'll just say, and here today we have Graeme Rollins from Wildsight and LaRae. So I'm going to introduce you first, Graeme, and ask you just to say your few words, and then LaRae, please go ahead, and then we'll mute, and then we'll be there.
Okay, sounds good.
That's
I
great,
do.
and it doesn't make a big difference to me, but I actually have two last names, and they don't have a dash between them, which is confusing to people.
Okay, but you are,
People always assume that the Lee is a middle name, but actually it's just two
it's
last
part
names.
of your last name. Okay,
Yeah.
Graeme Lee Rollins. I can do that. I got married and decided to keep my birth name, and now I have a hyphenated last name. I was finding it difficult to let go of my initial name, and now I have many names, too many names to fit in the boxes of things, but that's okay. We've got a few participants already, so actually that's the thing about webinars, is they are let in. I thought I did a waiting room, but apparently not. But hello everyone. They can't really see us. Sorry, we can't see them, but they are here. We have 11 people tuning in. And yes, LaRae, you're okay if this is recorded?
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then we'll, for people that have registered but couldn't make it for some reason, then they get the opportunity. I am going to enable closed captions for anyone who might have any audio hearing issues. So I'm going to do that now. So we might see some words pop along the bottom of the screen as we do things. For anyone else who's just joined us, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this. Well, I've got a slightly rainy looking Sunday morning here. How about you, LaRae? What's out your window?
Oh, it's beautiful outside. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. Yesterday was really nice, just sunshiny, and just it was like 80 degrees. It was wonderful.
Oh, yes, we had the same here. It was like one of those full days that dreams are made of, you know, just
yes.
and
Yeah.
cool and oh, good. More people. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Anyone that's joining us, there's a Q&A tab at the bottom. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into there, and then we can answer them maybe at the end after the reading. Please feel free to say hello there as well.
I feel kind of silly wearing this hat on a Zoom meeting, but the reason I'm wearing it is that it's got the it has
it's beautiful.
It's the same art as in the book.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nicola's art. Yeah.
Oh, that's
beautiful.
fantastic. I was just setting up. We're having a kokanee fish festival for BC Rivers Day where I am, and so I was just setting that up this morning. And yes, kokanee and little red fish make me very happy. Oh, good morning.
I was walking. I live in Golden, and there's a really beautiful valley just out of town called the Blaeberry. And I was walking there a week ago, and we found quite a few kokanee.
Oh, nice.
See, I didn't know that a kokanee is actually just a sockeye salmon that's landlocked, that they are. You know, I'm learning all about the species as part of my life here now. You know, it's a slightly different set of animals and ecosystems, but it's very special. This is a friend of Eileen Delante. She'll be joining you via my computer. Oh, fantastic. Hey, good morning, Eileen. Oh, we've got the author with us hiding, but joining, which I really enjoy. Beautiful. And we're at 7:58 my time, so I'm just going to give it 2 more minutes, and then we're going to get going on this beautiful Sunday morning. And make sure I have everything that I need ready to go. Good morning. Duncan, who's the... Megan says, thanks for doing this. Such a wonderful idea. Joining from Castlegar. Oh, lovely. If anyone wants to type in the chat where they're joining us from, that would be fantastic. Let us know who's interested in the heart of the river. That would be fantastic. Good morning from the West Kootenay, Shauna. Hello. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit go live, which means that we are going to connect to Facebook. So anyone who's joining, they're just preparing. Andrea's in Nelson Way. Hello. And Lim Lim. Hello and thank you, right, LaRae?
Yeah, why? Liam Lump.
Liam Lump. Beautiful. Okay, we are live. And so I'm going to get started. Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 26th of September, otherwise known as World Rivers Day. I'm joining you from the traditional and unceded territories of the Sinaiaks, the Silks, Ktunaxa, and the Sitrimic people, the land of the bull trout, otherwise known as Revelstoke, BC. My name is Jade. I'm here representing Canada's non-profit outdoor learning store, and also a little bit of Wildsight in there for sure. Today, I'm joined by the fantastic LaRae Wiley. She's the executive director of the Salish School of Spokane, and she's going to be our fantastic reader of the book today. And also joining us is Graeme Rollins from Wildsight, who helped produce this. Good morning to you both.
Thank you.
Morning.
Morning. Quest.
So I'm just going to do a bit of a little long intro to the book. So this book was written by Eileen Pearkes, and it's about the Columbia River. And this story is unique. The book's told from the river's perspective, and it's an immersive, empathetic portrait of a once wild river and the Sinaiaks, the first people who lived on the main stem of this great western river for thousands of years and continue to do so even though Canada declared them extinct in 1956. The book's re-release comes at a critical time for natural systems and for reconciliation with Indigenous peoples across North America. The Colville Confederated Tribes, representing over 3,000 Sinaiaks people, recently won a precedent-setting case in the Supreme Court of Canada, affirming that the Aboriginal rights don't stop at the border. This important story of the Sinaiaks weaves together with the ongoing ecological impact of hydropower development on the Columbia and its tributaries, and really just celebrating that the Sinaiaks are not extinct and that continue to care and nurture the land that we live on. This book is for anyone who cares about rivers, and central to it is the joyous spirit of the salmon, which have now been blocked from their ancestral spawning grounds by the Grand Coulee and other dams. Releasing this second edition of the book has been a joint effort of the authors, Wildsight, and the Sinaiaks people of the Colville Reservation, with generous support from the Columbia Power Corporation and the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network. Proceeds from book sales support local youth to attend Wildsight's Columbia River School. Might let Graeme talk a little more about that. And LaRae, we're very lucky to have you from the Arrow Lakes Band to share and read this story for us. You're a proud grandmother of 5 grandchildren and one of the new fluent speakers of the very highly endangered Colville Sinaiaks language. Graeme, I'm going to start with you before we get LaRae to dive in, and if there's anything you'd like to share with us as we begin the day.
Thank you, Jade, and I hope you will all forgive perhaps a few repetitions to some of the comments Jade has made. All I wanted to do was really give a bit of the backstory of how we got to this morning in terms of the bringing the book back to life. And so I coordinate Wildsight's Columbia River Field School, and I also work with the Wildsight education team on a few related projects, including the one we're here to talk about. And I can't remember when I first found the heart of a river, but it was probably shortly after I met its writer, Eileen Pearkes. In the summer of 2017, I was pedaling my bicycle up the Columbia River, all the way from the ocean to the headwaters, to learn all I could about the watershed. I was hungry for any knowledge that I could gather. I found the heart of the river to be absolutely unique because it provides an entry point into the complex world of Columbia Basin studies that is based in story, beauty, and ethics, rather than typically drier science, history, or policy. This approach is all too rare, and I've been delighted to use the book many times since in the Columbia River Field School with high schoolers and in a lot of other settings. And so in early 2020, a year and a half ago now, I was unsurprised to find the book nearly sold out, and I quickly purchased the last few copies left out there from a bookstore in the cusp. Shortly after that, Eileen and the book's illustrator, Nicola Lyttle, approached me to think about how we could bring it back to reach more readers. As some of you may know, the economics and logistics of publishing are not always easy, even for a hugely popular work. And so after many dead ends, we found a way forward in the end. With generous financial support from the Columbia Power Corporation, WildSite arranged to print 1,000 copies, which were just delivered last month. As is fitting, given the book's focus on the Sinixt, half of these will be delivered to the Sinixt community south of the international border. And in particular, I'd like to thank Shelley Boyd, Arrow Lake's facilitator for the Colville Confederated Tribes, for her enthusiastic involvement in this venture. The other 500 copies are available to the public through Canada's nonprofit outdoor learning store, thanks to generous support from the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network. Proceeds from the sales of these copies will support local youth to attend the Columbia River Field School, which we hope will resume this summer after an unfortunate 2-year COVID hiatus. To conclude, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you to celebrate World Rivers Day with this remarkable story of a river that has profoundly shaped my own life. And I couldn't be more grateful to LaRae for agreeing to lead us in this special reading. Thank you, and Liam Limt.
Liam Limt.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing the depth of what brought this book back to life again. So that's a really magical thing. And to cycle the entire Columbia River, that's quite an achievement. It must have been a very special moment to connect with the spirit of the river. Okay, LaRae, it's time to hear your beautiful voice and to lift our morning with your sharing, if you're happy to. Is there anything you'd like to say before you dive right in?
No, just Liam Limt for this opportunity. This is the first, well, when you guys contacted me, that's the first time I'd heard of The Heart of a River. And it's just such a wonderful book. And I can't wait to use it in our classrooms at our school. And yeah, I just love it so much. And it just has such a great perspective. And I'm excited to share with you guys today.
Fantastic. And so please take it away.
Okay. The Heart of a River by Eileen Pearkes, illustrations by Nicola Lyttle. Can you guys see that okay? Yeah? Okay. I would like you all to imagine for a moment that you are water. Not water in a glass, still and calm as a lake. But water being poured, water on a journey, water moving downhill to the sea. Imagine yourself tangled by rocks and narrowed by canyons. Imagine yourself humbled to the land. That has always been my experience. I am the Columbia River. This is my story. The earliest memories I have of myself are very faint. Like your earliest childhood memories, I cannot remember much about when I first came into being. I know that I've flowed for close to 20 million years. I know that I changed course many times as volcanoes erupted and lava bubbled across the Pacific Northwest. Then ice completely covered the land I journeyed across. I continued to flow, but more slowly and with greater depth as I carved a path through and under glaciers. When the ice began to melt, it shifted and shaped, helping to sculpt this mountain terrain. After most of the glaciers had disappeared, I settled into a path through the valleys that I still follow today. You're old enough to know that nothing that becomes big and grand starts out that way. It's the same with a river. I begin my journey across the land as a trickle. In a wetland in the Rocky Mountain Trench, I flow north for a while, growing larger and stronger and more defined before I bend south through the Purcell and Selkirk Mountains toward the sea. It's always been my goal to reach the ocean. All water wishes to join its great mother, the expanse of salt sea where many fish swim free. For thousands of years, I worked freely, but with care and diligence throughout the 4 seasons. As the air warmed in spring, I began to receive melting snow from the land. By early summer, I would swell like the belly of a whale as I passed through the mountains. I would foam and swirl, pausing occasionally in lakes, racing splendidly through canyons and over falls. When my water rose each year, it moistened many wetlands where reed grasses swayed, songbirds danced high in the cottonwood trees, and ducks floated on the pulsing stillness. Some years when the snow melted quickly and there was a great deal of it, I grew overwhelmed with my task. I swelled up and over my banks, flooding beyond the wetlands, filling the narrow valleys to the brim. When these great floods happened, fish swam among berry bushes. Trees seemed to grow from my water. In midsummer and into the autumn, just like an ocean breath being inhaled, I brought salmon back from the coast. Down at the place where my waters greeted the sea, the coho and sockeye and chinook climbed onto the back of my current. They needed cool mountain streams to spawn the next generation. They moved up in my waters to the birthplace we shared, the Columbia Mountains. I like to think that each year I brought a memory of the sea back into the mountains when I carried the salmon home. I like to think that I threaded together the ancient beads of water and land, salmon and bear, fisher and food. In winter, I grew still. In places I froze hard. Fish moved into my deepest waters underneath the ice. This was my time of rest and deep dreaming. 5,000 years ago, or even longer, I began to share my riches with people. The amaeyc tribe followed the salmon upstream, moving further and further into the Columbia Mountains, establishing villages at every turn of my flow. For a great long time, the amaeycs lived the life of river people. They fished for the salmon I carried on the back of my current. They dipped their tightly woven baskets into the clean water at my edges. They stroked the stillness of the Arrow Lakes with their carefully carved paddles and maneuvered their sturgeon-nosed canoes through my currents. They lived by my flowing rhythms. They buried their dead on my banks. About 200 years ago, some men pale as river stones came across the Rocky Mountains from the northeast. They were ragged and tired, and I can feel their dislike of my rocky turbulence. I know they found my waters cold and unfriendly. They wanted to share my path to the ocean. They traveled with effort in canoes turned up at the ends, a design unsuited to my rough waters. They struggled. I could see that, but I was not able to change how I had flowed for so long, just to increase the ease of their passage. I continued to do what I had always done, to find my way with great freedom and power to the sea. These men did not seem interested in the salmon. They wanted furs, not the river food. They built houses from trees set close together with all the green trimmed away. There on my banks, they lit fires and invited the first people in to trade hides from the beaver, the muskrat, the otter, and the bear. They taught the amaeycs a trade language called Chinook jargon. After that, when the amaeycs carried the boats of these furmen in portage, they pointed to the waterfalls and rapids and said, tum tum. This was their Chinook jargon word for the human heart, but also for my free spirit, for my river will. Tum wata, water with a heart. It was about that time that I noticed some of the amaeycs villages becoming still. Over the roar of my own water, I heard the moan of sick and dying people. I felt them plunge into me to cool their fevers, and I noticed more and more burials taking place on the shore. I knew something was wrong in the land, but I continued to flow along past the emptying villages. I hoped that these people who had so long lived beside my banks would regain their health and prosperity. Larger boats came, carrying black-clothed men and some women, all pale as a white river stone. They stopped in the same places where the furmen had built their homes from trees trimmed bare. They carried small black books and gathered the amaeycs around to speak to them with arms extended and palms turned toward the sky. I continued to flow in my own way. I meant these river travelers no harm. Once a boat filled with them lost its balance in my current. The canoe turned over quickly, and I'm sorry to say that in my rush to the sea, I swept some of them away with me. A few decades later, I began to feel the weight of large flat-bottomed boats on my water, river steamers, carrying people and supplies to new smooth-sided buildings along my banks. Above me, in the bow of a flat-bottomed boat, I saw a amaeycs man guiding the captain along the swirling current. I rarely saw any other amaeycs people fishing along my banks anymore. They were no longer busy with basket traps and harpoons. Their villages had been dismantled or buried by towns. I saw fires sweeping the valleys and hillsides. I saw miners searching the creeks for gold. I continued to flow through all these changes. A few times, as usual, I became overwhelmed by my task. My waters reached very high, flooding the narrow valleys, the bustling towns, the farmlands and orchards marked out by some of the passengers traveling in the flat-bottomed boats. The people, pale as river stones, had built their cities and towns right near the water's edge. What could I do when the snow was very deep and the melt so sudden? I had no choice. My work was, as it always had been, to carry the water to the sea, to empty the mountains of their melting white burden and bring back the salmon, to moisten the many wetlands which lined my banks. There's not much more to tell. Only 150 years after the people pale as river stones arrived, they devised a way to take my river heart for their own uses, to change how I'd flowed for millions of years. The concrete gates they built from bank to bank kept me from bringing the salmon back. They said they needed to capture my energy as it fell to the sea. They said it was being wasted. They said that dams would not harm me or the landscape I flowed across. I could not imagine why they would do such a thing to me. I wondered if they'd grown angry about my waters swelling so high, something I could do nothing about. I wondered if they harbored ill feelings for the few deaths I caused in the place they called La Dalle des Morts, the rocky rapids of the dead. I must admit that I'm nearly dead myself. Now I'm a river whose heart struggles to pulse with the rhythms of life. I'm a river whose work has been interrupted by a prosperity I do not recognize, whose spirit is impoverished and silenced. I wonder how the people, pale as river stones, could understand so little about my purpose, what I was born for, to find my way with great freedom and power to the sea. But I am still hopeful. Someday I will again be able to carry the salmon on the back of my currents. My tumwata will beat hard and strong as I move through the mountains to greet the sea. I will be able to share my spirit with the land and its people, for I am the giver of life and freedom. I am water, the heart of a landscape. I am the Columbia River. Leem lumped.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for that beautiful reading. That was just lovely. And what a beautiful way to start the day. And sharing that, just beautiful. And I think, as a book, it talks history, it's culture. And as we approached the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on the 30th, sharing the Indigenous use and how these rivers have been the heartline of Indigenous peoples for thousands of years, is pretty special. And for this particular part of the Columbia River, there is an Indigenous-led vision with the Bringing the Salmon Home project, the Columbia River Salmon Reintroduction Initiative, which is an Indigenous-led collaboration of the Silks, the Tanaha and the Shutuemic people, Canada and British Columbian governments, balancing that renewable hydroelectric power with trying to bring the salmon home. So there is, like the book says, like the river says, we are hopeful for beautiful things. I'm going to open it up at this moment to see if anybody would like to type a question into the chat or request to unmute to ask any questions or share with us anything. But if not, that was a beautiful rendition. And Lim Limt for your time and your words and your energy.
Yes, thank you. It was just a great opportunity for me to read that beautiful book, and I'm hopeful.
That's excellent. I've just typed the Salish School of Spokane's link into the chat as well, if anyone wants to look at the work that LaRae is doing there too. And you can also see the Columbia River Salmon Reintroduction project here, so you can see a little bit about what people are doing. Graeme, do you have the link to the Riverfield School so people can see the awesome work that you're doing with students as well, in connecting and promoting environmental stewardship? I think we've got quite a lot of shy people this morning, and I guess that's totally fine. So again, I will say Lim Limt. I will say is way or way used for hello and goodbye?
Yes.
So I say way, and have a beautiful World Rivers Day. Mindy says, thank you, that was wonderful. I'd not seen the book before and would love to get some copies to share. She really hopes we can get salmon back to the headwaters of the Columbia. And people are asking, how can you get a copy of the book? I'm wondering if Duncan can add a link quickly to the outdoor learning store. So Canada's non-profit outdoor learning store, all of the profits from the book go back into environmental education and other non-profits. So please feel free. Before we leave, I'll make sure you have that link. And actually, if you registered, you'll get a follow-up email with a link to the recording, a link to the book, and a link to LaRae's school, so you can see what's happening there. Lim,
actually, see, there's one question in the question box here from Megan Reed. LaRae, can you share the name of the river in Sinai?
Oh yeah, in or that hun is the roaring sound. Hun, yeah.
And Megan actually asks, how could I say water in Sinaic generally?
Yeah,
it's almost onomatopoeic, isn't it, in the noise as the sound is, as the thing is?
I think so. When I first heard Salish, I thought that it sounded like a river, and the swooshing and the rocks you can hear clicking together sometimes underneath the water as they roll. That's how I felt about our language and what it sounded like to me.
That is beautiful. Yes, if you've registered, we'll make sure we get the link. That's lovely. I will say goodbye. Have a beautiful day today. I hope anyone gets a chance to be near water, to be near a river, and to share a moment of appreciation for this beautiful life-giving force that is the most powerful force of change and evolution in our landscape. So the rivers are so incredibly important.
Well, Lim Limt, why?